Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sustainable Mail Group's fourth session of 2024, which is a sustainability story of print, paper, and mail. This is a seminar that we're hosting alongside the folks at Two Sides. Um, I'm Andrew Gustin. I'm the Executive Director of the Sustainable Mail Group. And I just want to cover off on some minor housekeeping details for this event. We're scheduled from 3 to 4 p.m. this afternoon. And you can ask any questions during the chat or the Q&A function, hopefully both of which are working at this point in time. But we'll endeavor to try to answer those questions at the very end of the session rather than throughout the session. The event is being recorded and we'll post it to our YouTube channel. And you can find virtually all of the links for every event that we've hosted in the chat itself, along with all of the other links that we've posted to this event, specifically a link to how to go about joining the Sustainable Mail Group and the bios of our two panelists today. Um, the ability to be able to host and do these kinds of things is really only possible by the membership that we end up hosting. And therefore, if you feel that you're getting something out of this content, please feel free to join the Sustainable Mail Group. And as we continue to post more content, you can subscribe to our channel and click on that bell icon so that you'll know that new content has been posted. So without further ado, let's just get into this. For our panelists, if you wouldn't mind maybe doing a quick introduction to yourselves and your backgrounds and where you are physically too, and maybe just a flavor of what the weather's like.
Love it.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, Jules Van Sant, and it is 18 degrees Celsius where I'm at right now. So just so you know, that's 64 degrees Fahrenheit. But I'm in Portland, Oregon on the West Coast. Nice to see everyone here. I am the Executive Director of Two Sides North America. Myself and Jill have been overseeing the organization since early this year, once Kathy Rousey, who was the former president, retired. So we have been wrapping our heads around everything. We've been working with Two Sides for a number of years, working on content creation, social media engagement, and some other PR work. So we're very familiar, but we have kind of elevated our game. We bring a lot of background in the industry. Mine particularly has been not only in the association side, having run a print and packaging association out of the Pacific Northwest for 13 years. That was affiliated with Printing Industries of America, but I've worked in advertising agencies. I've purchased a lot of printing. I have run pre-press and plate making for flexography. I've worked in large format shops. I have sold offset printing and have a long history of experience throughout the industry in different segments. In the last 6 years, Jill and I have also run an agency called Bubble and Hatch, where we specialize in the print, paper, packaging, and ancillary industries and nonprofits. So we kind of come with a lot of different knowledge and experience, and we're excited to be here and share what we're doing with Two Sides.
Thanks, Jules. Jill?
Yeah. Well, similar to Jules, a lot of background in, but mostly on the paper side. Crazily enough, I started my career in the working in sports marketing and worked for 2 NHL teams many years ago. So, and then converted to working in the Silicon Valley. So I worked for high tech companies. And then when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, where I'm located just over the river in Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, BC, which often gets confused, but Vancouver, Washington, and got involved in the paper industry, went to work for a mill, and I've worked for on site at a paper mill for about 15 years, both in the US and in Canada. And so became very familiar with the environmental aspect, the forestry side, all of the things that paper mills are doing from a sustainability standpoint, and handled marketing for both mills. And then a little over 5 years ago, as Jules mentioned, ventured out, started Bubble and Hatch and a marketing consulting company, and we've focused primarily on the print and paper industry. And so that's what we've been doing for 5 years. And I've worked for Two Sides for doing work for them, working with them, being a member for many, many years. And it just made sense for us to kind of pick up the reins and move forward with the organization. And we're excited to, talk to our members, learn what kind of tools everybody needs to help them tell the sustainability story, which is a great story, and grow the industry and grow the organization. So.
Thanks, Jill. You realize for the Canadians who are on this call, and likely for a lot of people who may be in the US, you've endeared yourself quite a bit by your NHL affiliation, right?
Yes. It was a
So,
fun, my 20s were fun. I had a lot of fun working in the NHL. So it was a good time. So.
yeah, I bet. So
Yeah.
we'll probably get around to picking your brain about that.
Yeah.
If you guys are okay, I think a lot of people who are on the call have had an opportunity to at least have some level of engagement with Two Sides, or at least know, a little bit about Two Sides. But it would be beneficial, and even, for me to kind of go back and, get some sense as to, how did the organization end up starting, and, what were the initial objectives, and how that evolved over time.
Do you want to take that one?
Well, sure. Two Sides has been around quite a while. I think we were looking back at, it was 2008, you said?
Yeah, there's some celebration of 10 years, and I think that's as a conglomerate and kind of getting that organization internationally together. But right, the origin of it was about 13, 14, 16 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And Martin Eustace, who's based out of the UK, started the organization. And originally, Phil Rebell was working here in North America. And really, the idea around it is to create an organization that dispels common environmental misconceptions about the print, paper-based packaging industry. So, and really drive the fact-based aspect of the sustainability story of paper. I think, people have the misconception that not using paper saves trees. And really, there's a lot of information about the sustainability of paper, the industry itself, forestry. And so their original idea was to dispel those myths about it and help the industry have the tools to be able to communicate that out. And that was, they also, through research, surveys, data gathering, and then it has evolved into combating greenwashing as well. So that is one of the tenets of our organization, is to combat greenwashing claims. So again, dispelling those misconceptions about print, paper, and paper-based packaging. So.
You did when the organization started, did you guys actually have a packaging mandate underneath that as well, or was it initially, more print focused and perhaps mail focused as well?
Yeah, it really has been more print and paper focused than packaging. I think, and Jules chime in here, but over the years, the shift with the onset of Amazon and, the need to buy products online and have them delivered to your door, really the packaging side of things has evolved and grown and continues to evolve and change. I mean, Amazon just announced that they're, getting away from the air pillows, the plastic air pillows that they're using in all their packaging. And so, really, Two Sides is kind of an evolving organization as the industry needs change, more regulation comes into play, and that varies province to province, state to state, country to country. It's really kind of staying on top of that and what are the challenges that our members are facing. There's a lot of consolidation in the industry that's happened, a lot of conversions of paper machines to different types of products that they're making. So we're really trying to adapt and make sure that we're continuing to tell that story, and give the tools to our members to be able to help tell their customers that story.
And I think on the to supplement that, the plastic side of the story that is just really elevating, that is really pushed us towards focusing a lot. We already do research around the packaging side and consumer perception, and we do some work around that, but we definitely over the last couple of years are seeing that need grow to where we're be able to supply more facts and dispel some of those misconceptions and support the industry that way, as the plastics industry is fighting side by side for some of that volume. So
and I think you guys may have covered a little bit of this off, but could we kind of scale back a bit and just kind of focus more specifically around what the primary mission on two sides ends up being, and then the objectives, and possibly even talk about how do you guys end up kind of evaluating the success of those mission statements? Like, how do you guys look at whether or not you've achieved those objectives?
So go ahead.
I was going to say there's several ways we look at how we measure things. The research that we do, so we do a survey every 2 years of consumer perceptions of print, paper, and paper-based packaging. So we work with a third-party agency that does the research globally. So it's not just North America, but across the globe, we compile this research to see what the consumer perceptions are about paper, and are we moving the needle as far as recycling, as far as utilizing paper, and their views on forestry and how is it growing or shrinking. And so what is that perception out there? Because that tells us where we need to focus, what our message needs to be, where we might need to reach more of those consumers. And then on the greenwashing side, we physically write letters to companies and organizations that are making greenwashing claims. And there is support on the legislative side as well, whether in the US with the FTC or in Canada with guidelines on advertising, and making sure that if companies are making sustainability claims about paper, that they've got the data to back it up, and to make sure that we're shining a light on that misinformation and trying to get them to change their messaging on their website or in their mail pieces, to combat that misconception about the sustainability of paper. So we measure how many successes we have, how many companies have removed messaging, and that's one of the things our members really look for us to do, is to be that advocate in that space. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we're not trying to tell companies, organizations that they can't offer a digital option. Yeah. But we do not want them to say that is saving trees, that is good for the environment, because that is not fact-based. And so those are the kinds of terminology, those kinds of interactions that do shift consumer perception. And so we see one of our tenets is to help move that back to, you can make a choice, but do it based on facts.
Yeah.
So you mentioned research that you folks end up conducting, and then the campaigns that you guys end up conducting as well. Like, if you were somebody who's attending this call right now and wanted to get access to that research, how would they go about? Is that publicly available?
Some of
Um,
it is, not all of it, though. We do have some reports that are truncated and simplified. We obviously are engaging in social media on a regular basis and pulling data from our surveys as well as other organizations around North America to curate content out there that people can have access to. But really, our members, just like with this the Sustainable Mail Group. It's same with Two Sides. We're a membership organization, and so there are longer reports, more data, more opportunity to co-brand, access to our content that we create prior to it being distributed, so that our members can utilize that in their messaging. And there's a lot of tools and opportunities for people that are members to take it to that other degree. Otherwise, part of our tenet is to make sure that that information is searchable and that people, if they're doing that research, that they can at least see that there's some data there that they can use to justify their purchasing or their selling, if it's a paper printing, packaging, mailing organization.
Yeah,
You
we do
raised a,
offer,
sorry.
sorry, we do compile a lot of data. So on our website, if you go on there, there are fact sheets that are available to review, and it's a lot of information that we've compiled from a variety of sources. So there's a Canadian fact sheet that talks about Canadian forestry, Canadian paper manufacturing, recycling, in jobs, things like that, that are compiled from various sources, reliable sources. FPAC, National Resources Canada. We want to make sure that we're compiling good information about the industry and segmenting it in ways that is useful to our members. So we have a fact sheet about electronic communications. We have a fact sheet about greenwashing. We have a U.S. fact sheet. We have a Canadian fact sheet. And one of the things Jules and I really are looking forward to doing, and we've started the ball rolling, is taking those facts and turning it into more consumable, end user facing, easy to digest infographics and things that are, it's hard to go through a page full of facts and really kind of understand what that all means. So taking that critical information and boiling it down into some visual, compelling, easy to use graphics, and we make those, we'll make those co-brandable for our members.
So, just to that point then, I mean, and this is kind of a good segue, how can you illustrate maybe a little bit of, some examples of collaboration where you've either, built something specific for the segments, and or if you've, perhaps worked individually with an entity or organization in terms of helping them support their initiatives, and just to give a little bit of flavor as to, if people sign up with Two Sides, what kind of data can they get, what kind of collaborations have been worked on, what kind of fact sheets might be available, if you don't mind.
Well, one of the things that we do, we provide our members with a whole month of social content. So we develop a calendar of social posts around a variety of different topics, create the graphics, write the posts, provide links to the fact sheets and data. And we compile that into a document that we send out to our members to be able to utilize for their social media as well. So basically, they just have to cut and paste and maybe customize a little bit for their company. But, that's one tool that our members really, everybody's looking for content. So on the social media side, that's one thing that's been very well received by our members. We also do webinars. So we'll any of our members that want to talk to their customers or their employees.
Internal stakeholders, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. We'll do webinars. We have slides that we can send out for members to customize and utilize for their own presentations. Again, co-branding, all of these kinds of tools are things that, we want this information out there. We're better collectively to spread this message. So making sure that and hearing what is useful to our members is really critical as well. We want to make sure we're focusing our efforts on materials that are going to be valuable to them. So really taking that feedback, and if there's a hot topic that we need to kind of address, we also partner with industry organizations, the Sustainable Mail Group, AF&PA in the United States. So we get access to the data and the information that they're putting out, the research that they're doing. So those partnerships are critical as well to help us keep that message consistent. So we're utilizing the same, accessing the same pieces of information. So we're keeping that that ongoing messaging and consistency with the message that we have. So
I think too, we create ads, and that's something that we've been working on. We're also in the process of relaunching our Love Paper campaign, which is an international campaign, and getting it retooled for North America. It went dormant for a few years during COVID. And so we see that as an opportunity, again, for more visual content that is really easy for consumers to identify with the logo, with the messaging, and then we'll be having some ads. So if there's like a Domtar, for example, they run our ads sometimes in their publication, to be able to utilize what we have as a message that isn't coming from them, but that's coming from a third party. We find that our members see that as very, very valuable.
One takeaway I've immediately, realized, and something we should, we'll post once we post this video up on our YouTube channel and share across some emails, just to ensure we get your social media assets out there, so that if people don't, necessarily make the effort towards joining you folks, they're aware of, the kind of messaging that gets out, and perhaps that will drive, a change in behavior down the line in terms of, people's desires and choice to sign up. I think we've been talking a lot about the B to B side of things, but I think there's a definite role to play on the the consumer side of things. Did I see B2B, or yeah?
Yeah, you said B2B.
So what efforts have you put in place to try to, at least provide more insight and information to consumers who, may be receiving mail in their mailbox and, may question, why are we printing this piece necessarily, and why are we just, wasting more paper here, which isn't the case. Like, so what have you folks engaged in from a consumer education perspective as well?
I would say a lot of it is that we rely on community, which is our membership and the industry as a whole, to utilize our information, our tools, and to pay those down. Our social media channels, again, are probably our number one way that we get directly in front of that consumer base. I know we're talking about TikTok, we're talking about, utilizing some places where we've just started Instagram for Two Sides, really trying to get down to where those consumers are. But then again, working with brands. So we've presented at a couple of conferences where they're nonprofits and we're, brand owners, and trying to get them to understand our message so that when they're addressing their consumer base, they can pay that forward as well. And they don't shy away from the idea of paper-based packaging and direct mail. So those are some of the ways. But I think networking and having all of these tools available is really the key to how we move the needle.
Jill, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think, we were, like Jules said, we rely on our members to pass it along to their customers very much. So it's, I think also going back to the Love Paper campaign, that is a more of a consumer facing campaign. And kind of in the EU, they have really developed that into an ongoing consumer campaign with ads, and so we want to make sure that we carry that into North America and give also our members access to the logo to be able to put it on their materials. So it's just kind of building that messaging and then again supporting the the information that we have with the facts behind it. I think that's the key. Is that I think we wrote a blog post about millennials and Gen Zs wanting to their buying decisions are really being driven by sustainability and the sustainability message that companies are putting out there, but they're skeptical. So they did a survey and they want to put their money where their mouth is. They want to spend on environmentally sustainable products, but they're also very skeptical about what companies say. So I think making sure that that information is really fact based is critical. So.
Yeah, and I know from communicating with you guys that you don't sit behind a desk very often, because I was frankly, I wouldn't say envious as much as in awe of your travel schedules. But you guys make your presence known in other avenues as well, right? I mean, you're quite actively engaged, being face to face with a variety of organizations and whatnot. Could you kind of maybe illustrate some of that? I mean, in terms of, let's just roll back the calendar and, say, where have you guys been in the last 4 or 5 months?
Oh, well, I know I attended Drupa, so I was talking to a number of suppliers as well as some of the attendees about Two Sides and the work that we do. We've signed on recently e-productivity software. So again, a software for the industry, but that very much sees the importance on the packaging side in particular, that the message gets out there. So being out there and networking at the trade shows is really important. We'll be speaking at Printing United in September as well on, again, utilizing sustainability marketing in a way that is verifiable and can boost your opportunity in business. And I think coming from the marketing side, we're able to kind of spin both the sustainability and how to use that in your messaging. Jill and I have both been to a variety of conferences where we've spoken. The Paper and Packaging Board, Jill was just there. I was at, again, the nonprofit symposium in Washington, D.C., the Book Manufacturers Institute, we've spoken to them. Doing a lot of that kind of work. And then I spend a lot of time with universities. I'm very involved with the graphic communications industry in North America through the Print and Graphic Scholarship Foundation, through the Technical Association of Graphic Arts, and a variety. I'm on a couple of advisory boards. And so really trying to get to those students and the educators as well. If they're doing research and or as they're talking to their student base that might be entering the industry, that they understand. So, and we get feedback from them about what the perception is. And so, we see that we have some uphill battle as an industry to really change this next gen's perception, as Jill said earlier. But getting in touch and getting them aware and starting to create that community has really been a focus of ours, and it will continue throughout the rest of the year.
I think too, real quickly to add on that, is that a lot of the focus in the past has been on the relying on paper manufacturers to be our members. And so it's not just the paper manufacturers. Jules and I saw a huge opportunity to engage with printers, to engage with suppliers, equipment manufacturers, software, like she mentioned, universities. So I think it's getting beyond just the responsibility of the paper manufacturer to tell the sustainability story, but also all of the supporting industries, the ancillary industries that utilize print and paper as well, and mail. And so it's, engaging on all levels that help us kind of get that message out, and it doesn't all fall to the source of, the mills that are producing the paper. So
Have you had any engagement specifically with any brand owners outside of the paper and print side of things? I'm thinking retail, grocery, insurance, like anybody who just who would be utilizers of either mail or paper packaging or what have you. And have they kind of come to you folks to engage and say, hey, we need some help in terms of crafting either a messaging or get some supporting data behind the direction that we're trying to take?
I don't know
well
that directly, have we?
Well, Jules mentioned that she spoke at an industry event for nonprofits, and so I think it's more not necessarily companies that are coming to us with. I mean, although we do have brands that are members and get our blog posts and follow us on
Oh,
social
yeah.
media and things like that, but really it's within our industry, the folks that are being affected by the misconceptions and the misinformation about sustainability. So we really try and focus on the sustainability messaging. That's kind of that's our drive, and our focus is to really focus on the forestry, on the water use, on CO2 emissions, on all those things around the industry specifically. So
Well,
yeah.
and I think that, but we get that feedback, right? So a lot of our members or potential members that are out there trying to engage these brands need to have third-party information to justify why. And so that's where we come in, right? So we can be that direct partner to give that information where it's not them just, again, getting potentially scrutinized for the why would you say that? Are you sure that's true? We're able to, as a third party, support that. But I will say internationally, as Jill and I have put our two sides hats on and really dug in and gotten to know our international partners, which there's 13 of us total, I believe. Around the world, that they are doing more of that they are engaging with the IKEAs of the world and talking about what they're doing and why they're doing it and helping to really tell that story back. So definitely we're seeing an appearing situation and opportunity to continue to grow that over time. So we've hit the ground running pretty heavy. And so we're excited to continue to increase those engagements.
So since you guys have kind of gone down that path already, there was a question that I was going to end up asking, a little bit later, but let's talk about it now. Is that, like, what's that collaboration level with the various two sides organizations that end up existing around the world? And maybe you can, I think you mentioned some, the origins were in the UK. What's where are other some of the two sides entities that end up existing around the world?
Well, we have a monthly meeting with all of our two sides members globally. So they're within the EU is probably the largest arm of the organization, and within the EU they have in two sides organizations within Germany, Italy, Portugal, Norway, all throughout Europe. In South America and Brazil is a very active organization. In South Africa, in Australia. So places where there are print and kind of paper industries that are focused and have a large presence. And you know, we all share the same brand, which can be a little confusing for people sometimes because a lot of people follow the EU side of things. They also follow North America, so it all looks very similar, but it's got different information for different countries. So one thing I recommend for people is when they go on the website to make sure they're on the North American website. Otherwise, they'll see a lot of different data for different countries. But we share resources, we share challenges, and every region, you know, the EU has all kinds of compliance regulations coming down the pipeline. But there are global companies in North America that are very concerned because they have to comply with this because they're shipping product into Europe. So we share that information. We share, you know, we get data from them. We get access to their partners as well. So if there's a member in North America that has questions about how things are being applied in another country, we have a resource there that we can kind of lean in on and help us kind of explain that story and provide resources for that as well.
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask that about like what were you guys seeing as potential pieces of information in these conversations that could be shared back into the North American context. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And I think that that kind of dovetails well into, you know, the next question, which is like, what are your challenges and future directions? So, you know, if you folks had a crystal ball and you wanted to, and you could, you know, communicate what you feel, you know, the areas that you need to possibly address or, you know, focus some effort towards, you know, where would that end up being, you know, challenges and potential opportunities at the same time?
I think the market dynamics continue to change. The consolidation of the industry, the competitive nature of how people spend their marketing and brand dollars, to whether that's through digital means versus through print and packaging and mail means. And so being able to continue to support the positive aspects of receiving, reading, engaging in physical interaction versus digital. You know, trying to keep on top of some of that data to support a changing generational shift in how we consume information and how we purchase. Also, you know, the misconception about forestry and fighting those claims again that are being done by industries that are trying to survive, right? And so, you know, taking the high road on that, but also paying attention, trying to stay ahead of where things are legislatively, and to ensure that the information that we have is going to be relevant to the industry as a whole into the future. Because as we conduct our survey at the end of the year, we give the results out in 2025 is when the new results will come out. We need to try to have a little bit of a crystal ball on what relevancy that information is going to be.
Right.
So we don't want to rest on our laurels that way. You know, and I think the going paperless, saving trees, that seems to be kind of that number one thing that just keeps alive. And so we're not killing trees. We're reforesting and really kind of making sure that we have the stats on a regular basis in the US, in Canada, and we get that information out there.
And just a quick question here, and it's just came to mind. I mean, have you folks in some of the conversations, you know, seen or, you know, felt that not that there's, you know, a tremendous shift back towards, you know, physical mail necessarily, but that there is an increased level of interest, for instance, on the physical side of things, given the kind of the saturated state the digital ends up being right now, and the fact that there's, you know, so many, you know, means by which you can ignore a message that in some ways mail doesn't allow for. And it wasn't, you know, I think you know what I mean. I
Right.
just,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, all the research that we do shows that people engage more with print. So all of the data that we come across, and even in a younger generation is they like the tactile feel of print. They like to be able to go to a library. We just did a blog post about younger millennials using the library and sharing what they're reading on social media. I mean, there is an integration between digital and print that I think. I mean, we're not so naive to think that the genie's out of the bottle, right? So we're how does print work with a digital? And one of the challenges on the U.S. side is postal increases, and so companies that want to use print, they see the value in print. They want to prospect for new customers utilizing print. There's less competition in the mailbox than there is in your email feed. And so, but it's cost prohibitive because sometimes the postal increases have in the US have been very continuous. And so that is a big challenge for the print industry as a whole right now, is to be able to effectively be able to send print because it's become cost prohibitive. But and the consolidation of the industry, we continue to see. I mean, it's continuing to evolve with mills making new grades, moving to packaging, shifting. So it's just managing those dynamics, and then the other big challenge is climate change. I think people are becoming much more aware of environmental issues, and they scrutinize the information that a company puts out more. And so I think that's why having the facts about paper at your fingertips is really helpful for people, because it tells a great story of it's really a very circular process, and it always it really always has been. It's got a good recycling rate. It's the trees are reforested. There's a great story for paper to tell, and so being able to have the information to be able to tell that story is really critical. So
Thanks.
yeah.
Do you guys have anything else you want to add to the conversation before we kind of jump into the questions? Because we've got quite a few questions. So anything else you guys want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a bit. There's a lot of myths and facts that we put together. So, one thing is if you go on our website, there's little bite-sized bits of information, myths and facts. So if you're looking for specific information about CO2 emissions or water or forestry, there's a lot of good little bits of information to kind of help tell that elevator speech about the sustainability of paper. So,
and our tagline, print and paper have a great story to tell. I mean, it's true. And as somebody said in a conference years ago, remember that something in print, you just need ambient light. So with all these storms and all this other stuff and power going out, guess what? Print can still be used no matter what. So cell towers down. So it's print has a lot of staying power, and there's a lot of stats around sales, and that print integrated with a digital campaign, there's more drive to the website, and there's more commerce that happens because of print. So we try to integrate that into our messaging, and we invite everyone to let us know what would be helpful information for them. Because oftentimes we have access to data, but like Jill says, we have so much data that we're trying to really bring it down to bite-sized, consumable, shareable information. So if it's something that you're not seeing from us, let us know, and we'd love to see if we can curate that, because if you need it, someone else does.
So to that point, I've actually, if people scroll back in the chat, you'll see the actual links that I provided to Two Sides North America, as well as both of your bios on LinkedIn. Is there any specific area that they would need to focus on if they were looking at joining Two Sides on your site, or is it pretty clear and evident as to where they would end up going?
Yeah, there's a membership tab at the very top. And if you go
Perfect.
there, it talks about our value proposition, our benefits, and how to join. And again, without the support of the industry, we couldn't do the work that we do. So we're very grateful for everyone.
And one thing too that we should add is that we do rely on our members to provide us with greenwashing claims. So we do have a form on our website. If you go to the greenwashing section on our website, we really appreciate it when members, if they get an email that says, go paperless, save the environment, those kinds of things, to send it in to us so we can take a look at it and add it to our list of organizations that we can talk to and see if we can get them to change their messaging about print.
Please. Yes.
Yeah, and so it's really critical for us to continue that aspect, to have input from our members that see those. I mean, we see them every day, right? We see them all over the place. A little green tree, go paperless, save a tree, kind of thing. And we've got a lot of really good information that says, well, this is why going paperless isn't really saving a tree, and we want to be able to educate people on the brand side as well. So,
yep.
Thanks, Jill. So I just shared that to everyone actually.
Yep.
So that's great. Can we just dive into the questions then? And there's a lot of them, and I'm not sure how well you'll be able to answer some of them, because I know I won't be able to. But can we just dive into them then?
sure.
So the first one that we've got is a generalized question, which I think asks about what maybe independent third-party information you folks turn towards. So, to read out the question, it says, from what sources does Two Sides generally source scientific data? Excuse me. Examples: carbon capture, forest regrowth, recycled paper metrics. Besides using NRCan and government forestry bodies, which some people may consider biased.
We do research on and utilize resources that are peer reviewed. I mean, so there is information in there. We primarily focus. I mean, there's not. It's hard to find data specifically targeted towards the message that you're trying to focus on. So forestry specifically, how much forest land is there? There are not a lot of organizations other than, the United States Department of Agriculture that measures forest land specifically to that level. So we do rely on government agencies to provide that information for us. But we do also want to make sure that the information is reliable. And so we do, as we're building information, I go out to different resources. If people send me information, we'll review it. We'll take a look at it. You're right. There's a ton of information out there, and depending upon the audience, the source, you kind of get mixed messages. It's very complicated, but we want to make sure we're pulling in reliable and accurate data as best we can. So,
Yep.
And I can, asking to that question then, I mean, if people go to collect, pull any information off of your site, or, any of the resources that you provide, there are citations as to where the source information is.
Absolutely. Yeah. We link out to the sources of the information that we have. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So next question is, what are the most common types of greenwashing the Two Sides has intervened in? I'm not sure if intervened would be the right choice of words, but I guess you guys have focused on maybe that would be, yeah.
So I'm reading a couple of them, Jill, right now. Jill's been pretty deep, like chest deep in a lot of our greenwashing, but in just looking at some of the new claims that have been submitted, it says to go green and save on GHG emissions, right? That's one of the claims from a financial institution. Well, are you really saving on greenhouse gas emissions if you go paperless? I would say that there's facts against that that would counter that. So that is a kind of claim that should not be said. It's there are some about, go green, go paperless. Well,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Go green is it's implying something without some backing. So we do challenge the go green claim quite often. Also,
I think, yeah, one of the things that is according to Truth in Advertising and some of the Federal Trade Commission and Canadian regulations for advertising, if you're going to make a claim that you're saving greenhouse gas emissions or saving trees, there's got to be data to back it up. And typically those organizations don't have the data and have not done the life cycle analysis to be able to make that kind of claim. And so I think that's the primary thing that we see, is that they just make a blanket claim that, don't, save a tree, don't, print this out, or go paperless. And there's really contradictory information out there that is not the case. And so we basically just cite the data and send that to the organization and say, we see that you're saying this. And a lot of companies do it. Really, the reason they're going paperless is because it saves on cost. And so you can make it if you make it a sustainability message, it's a much more appealing message to the consumer. And one of the things that we've found is that people believe it. So 65% of people that see a greenwashing claim make a change in their behavior. And so there's also some information out there that says about 40% of the claims out there are greenwashing. And so it's really making sure that you hold those companies accountable. So if they're going to make that claim, that there's the data to back it up. So
it'll be, and I mean, I think I don't mean to put you on the spot here. I know this is a piece that you and I kind of communicated back. I think the evolution of like C59 in Canada may, result in changes as to how some of that information ends up being disseminated and consumed.
right.
I don't think we're experts on that, and I suspect that one of the outcomes will be that we'll probably want to discuss this at a future date as a separate topic. Okie doke. Sorry,
And
go
I
on.
think, the government agencies are going after the big companies that are making really egregious, things like Volkswagen, changing their emissions data and or mileage data. That was a huge story in the news. Those are the kinds of claims that the government agencies typically go after. So we're kind of just talking to the smaller companies that are just, not thinking about FTC guidelines or green guides or the Canadian advertising, guidelines, and just nudging them and saying, hey, really, you can say this, that you want people to go paperless. You just can't claim it's for environmental reasons unless you have the data to support it.
So Jill, can you share really fast the one with the newspaper? So we had a newspaper reported to us that actually was making a greenwashing claim.
Yeah, right. And so I just got on the phone with the editor, and she said, told her that I talked to her about, why are this is your lifeblood, this is your industry. And she just needed information. She needed the facts to tell her to share with her readers that this is, the value of having a printed edition of the newspaper. And so sometimes it just is required. It's sharing the information with people and letting them know about it. So.
And sorry to the people who are attending this as to why I, select into some of these questions, possibly because some of them I think I don't think we have the expertise necessary to be able to answer them. But there's a question here that says, are there links to LCAs covering digital media versus paper on the site itself right now?
There's information on the effects of not as far as ROI or as far as environmental.
Like an LCA versus like a
Right.
financial, so a life cycle analysis on digital versus paper media.
We don't have a complete life cycle analysis that compares the two.
Okay,
Right now
I
on the
know
website.
they're out there,
Mhm.
and maybe that might be a takeaway for a future
Mhm.
session or possibly even
Yes.
a blog
Yep.
post.
It's it,
Okay.
it's a tough
Mm.
like all of these, life cycle analysis are very specific to the specific, where the paper's coming from, where it's being shipped to, where, there's so much involved in a life cycle analysis that it's
Little
very
device.
difficult to create.
Mhm.
It's like a paper calculator and calculating the CO2 emissions for paper. Every mill has a different process, a different energy source, a different location. Transportation has a huge impact on it. So there's so many variables. It's hard to get an industry average that says, oh yes, if you do this, it's compared to this, it's going to give you this. It's almost impossible to do. You have to kind of do it on a very micro level.
So this is going to be the last question, or I'm going to combine two questions before we kind of wrap it up here, and that has to do with either alternative fibers or agricultural fibers. Have you folks had any not involvement, but I guess insight that you might end up sharing, or for that even possibly a position, just from using alternatives versus recycled fiber and that, just high level possibly.
We did have a data fact sheet on the use of alternative fibers. The previous person running the organization didn't have the bandwidth to do new research on it, so it hasn't been updated. So we pulled it off the website. But we can certainly, if there's an interest in doing some kind of comparison with alternative fibers, we can certainly look into it and revisit that. So there has been some done, and I believe there is some on the EU version of the Two Sides website that dives into alternative fibers. But from a North American perspective, the data has not been updated recently. So
Thanks. And I just apologize to the people who made a big effort in trying to put the questions together. I just we kind of ran out of time, and just I felt that some questions might be difficult to end up answering in this context. So we'll do our best to try to provide answers in some way, shape, or form in the future. So to everybody, to both of you and everybody who sat in on this session, thank you for your participation. And I just want to cover a quick set of points before we call it a day. The session has been recorded, and as I mentioned, our YouTube channel will be where we'll be hosting that. That'll be out likely within the next couple of days, likely early next week. If you enjoyed the event and you feel that there's some information that you'd like to share, by all means, once that video has been posted, please take the effort of communicating it out to your friends and sharing it. Join SMG. The membership is not a significant cost to do that, and it provides us the ability to be able to end up doing more and more of these seminars. And similarly, to look into Two Sides and helping support Two Sides in the efforts that you folks put together. And stay tuned, as we will be posting invitations to upcoming events. I think we'll be looking at August for our next series. If anything, we were actually looking at early July, but we kind of ran out of bandwidth to get to the finish line on the next session that we were hosting. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Jill. Have yourselves a nice weekend. And at least on the Canadian side of things, have a happy Canada Day and have a
yeah,
happy
happy
July
Canada
4th.
Day. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.